A Chinese surveillance balloon was discovered flying over the U.S. on February 2, 2023, by the North American Air Defense Command. Pilots were able to easily identify the balloon from afar below it, indicating that it was quite large and traveling 4 miles above commercial aviation activity. The general consensus was to shoot the balloon down right away, but President Biden chose a cautious approach and waited until it passed over an area with no people before launching missiles, putting an end to a bizarre international incident that had the nation's attention for several days. And although China later claimed that it was a weather balloon that had gone off course, we all know what the real story is. But what's really important is that this isn't the first time we are dealing with such issues. In actuality, the US, which now appears to be a victim, may have spied on its adversaries more than any other nation in the world. Everyone is aware of the U-2 crisis, or at least has heard of it. The United States utilized balloons to gather intelligence on its then largest adversary, the Soviet Union, in the 20th century. In the 1940s, Project Mogul launched balloons into the Soviet Union, equipped with microphones to record the sounds of the nation's first nuclear explosion. Then, in the 1950s, Project Moby Dick succeeded by using cameras mounted on balloons to get images of key nuclear locations in the Soviet Union. However, soon the US didn't require any balloons because spy aircraft had advanced considerably. Nonetheless, when on May 1, 1960, a U-2 spy plane piloted by Air Force Captain Francis Gary Powers was shot down in Russia, NASA put out a statement saying it was a weather plane that had gone off course. This is eerily similar to China's explanation for its recent balloon. However, when the Soviets triumphantly paraded Powers, and the then Soviet leader demanded in person an apology from the then American president, it led to increased tensions, and not too long after it, the two superpowers were close to a nuclear exchange. While luckily the world avoided that catastrophe somehow, the US is back to the same reckless attitude. It is once again to help Ukraine in its war, keeping track of Moscow's activities. But can we expect the same outcome again? Well, we cannot say for sure since the US is this time using spy planes near impossible to detect. The US and other members of NATO gather and share with Ukrainian forces intelligence concerning developments on the Russian side, and this has proved to be battle-defining. The two most prominent spy planes used for the purpose are the iconic U-2 and the RQ-4 Global Hawk. What makes these planes fit for the purpose? Let's see. 1. U-2. The Lockheed U-2 spy plane, about twice as wide as it is long, is one of the most unique aircraft in the United States Air Force, and the most difficult to pilot, giving it the nickname the Dragon Lady. The U-2, made of aluminum and only capable of subsonic flight, can cruise for many hours above 70,000 feet, 21,000 meters, with cargo weighing up to 3,000 pounds, 1,350 kilograms. The U-2 operates at such a high altitude, and with such a razor-thin margin between maximum speed and stall speed, that pilots refer to its cruising altitude as a coffin corner. Kelly Johnson, the leader of Lockheed Corporation's legendary, semi-secret Skunk Works, designed the jet based on the fuselage of the supersonic F-104 Starfighter Interceptor. The airframe was expanded by more than one-third over the original structure in the late 1960s, giving the aircraft a fuselage length of 63 feet 19 meters and a wingspan of 104 feet 32 meters. All U-2 aircraft have now been upgraded to U-2S and are fitted with the General Electric F-118 GE-101, engine miles ahead of the previous Pratt & Whitney J75P13 non-afterburning turbojet engine. The Dragon Lady has an initial climb rate of 15,000 feet per minute to around 25,000 feet, and then uses a lower climb rate to achieve its ceiling. What's even more impressive is that the aircraft can store about 2,950 gallons, or 11,167 liters of fuel, and can travel for a distance of 6,090 nautical miles, or 11,279 kilometers. The aircraft's slim shape make it difficult to see at times. It is frequently covered in pods, spiky antennae, unexplained bulges, and nose cones that conceal the sensors, radar, cameras, and communications equipment required to carry out its duties. At 70,000 feet and above, the Dragon Lady still has the stratosphere largely to itself, just as it did on its first trip 65 years ago. The pilot is more astronaut than an aviator at these heights, and in such thin air, the difference between life and death is razor thin. This is why, inside the cocoon-like, the pressurized cockpit of the U-2, wrapped in a bulky pressure suit with a large spherical helmet, the pilot breathes 100% oxygen. While the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, has used modified U-2s, designated ER-2 for Earth resources, to collect data on the atmosphere, Earth, and celestial events since the 1980s, its other applications have also been discovered. As previously stated, the plane was employed by the CIA and the United States Air Force USAF to monitor electronic emissions, sample the upper atmosphere for signs of nuclear weapons testing, and photograph areas deep into the territory of the Soviet Union, China, and other Cold War adversaries. Aside from this too, as strategic intelligence gathering missions continued, the U-2 was utilized for battlefield reconnaissance and surveillance in several conflicts and tension zones, in which the U.S. has been involved since the Vietnam War in the 1960s. The U-2 has faced competition from other intelligence gathering systems over its long service life, such as Earth-orbiting satellites or the supersonic SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, but intelligence and military services have consistently found it useful due to its operational flexibility, excellent aerodynamic design, and adaptable airframe. The USAF stated in 2011 that the U-2 would be retired from service sometime around 2015, with many of its responsibilities being taken over by the high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicles. With the expansion of the U.S. military campaign against the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant in 2014, however, the retirement of the U-2 was pushed back indefinitely. 2. RQ-4 Global Hawk, a remotely piloted, high-altitude, long-endurance aircraft with an integrated sensor suite that provides global all-weather, day or night intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance ISR capability. The purpose of Global Hawk is to offer a broad range of ISR collecting capacity to support joint combatant forces in global peacetime, contingency, and wartime operations. The Global Hawk is primarily controlled by control squadrons headquartered at Beale Air Force Base in California and Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota, but it has been deployed globally since 2001 to aid in operational effectiveness and information gathering. The RQ-4 provides a broad overview and systemic surveillance over the target area by employing high-resolution synthetic aperture radar and electro-optical infrared sensors with very long 34-hour-plus loiter durations. It can survey up to 40,000 square miles of the area every day, and the set capabilities of the aircraft, according to the U.S. Air Force, enable for more precise weapon targeting and better protection of friendly forces. In addition, using an unmanned aerial vehicle like this also reduces the risk of dispatching a human reconnaissance crew to risky regions. To date, the Global Hawk has participated in several critical missions, including Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Tomodachi in Japan. The RQ-4 can carry 3,000 pounds of cargo and is powered by a single Rolls-Royce North American F-137 RR100 turbofan engine, producing 7,600 lb-f of thrust. Furthermore, the aircraft has a top speed of 391 miles per hour and a service ceiling of 60,000 feet. All of this might help justify the flyaway cost of up to $131.4 million for each RQ-4 currently in service. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. See you next time.